Shalom Aleichem. I'm Rabbi Yaakov Spivak. Welcome to the Jewish Media Channel. And you know, one of the most important prayers that we have is the Amidah, called the Shmona Esrei. And in that prayer, we say that God is Zocher Chaste Avos. He remembers the kindness of the forefathers. Who may be Goel Livnei B'neihem, and he brings redemption, salvation, to their children and grandchildren. Today's story talks about one kind act, and may very well be the reason for that this act did something incredibly special. And that was with Charles Screbnik, my guest today. Charles Screbnik is a Holocaust survivor. And what happened in his day was, when he was a young child, he kept going from one place to another, being putting in orphanage after orphanage. And it was a very frightening situation to hide from the Nazis. And we will tell you about one specific act that may have been the reason that Charles was saved. You never know. First of all, I want to welcome you to the program. Charles Screbnik, I'm happy to have you here. Hello, how are you?
Thank you, and I thank you.
Charles, you want to tell us a little bit about your birth? We'll show the first picture. You want to tell us a little bit where you were born, and a little about your life, please?
I was born on August 31, 1934, in Brussels, Belgium. My father and mother had a knitting store, and we were invaded on the first 2 weeks in 1940. The King of Belgium surrendered to the Nazis in March of 1940. And at the beginning, the Germans didn't bother us too much. But then they started asking that we should come to the Gestapo headquarters once a week to register.
And let me ask you, let's, we have a picture of you and your parents. If we could put that up, tell us a little bit about your father and mother. If we have that slide, yeah, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, this particular picture is the end of 1940, which was the last time that I saw my father. This was the night before my mother and I were put into a Catholic orphanage by the vicar of the city of Namur, Belgium, Father Andre. And this was the last dinner that we had there, and that was the last time that I saw my father. My mother and I were in the orphanage for about 8 months. And what happened is my mother made cloth of shoes for the children. This was my birthday on 1934 when I was born. My father and I and my mother our apartment in Brussels. My mother was making cloth shoes for orphanage children in their orphanage. And one day she happened to look out her office, and she saw a man talking to the Mother Superior, and she recognized him. He was a Jewish man who worked at a movie theater in Brussels, but switched and became an agent for the Germans. He claimed that the Germans had his wife, and if he didn't do whatever they wanted, they would kill his wife. This I don't know.
So, so your mother got a little suspicious. Am I right?
Yeah. So she went
yeah. Go ahead.
She went to the Mother Superior after he left, and she asked him, what did that man want? And the Mother Superior told my mother that he claimed that he represented Jewish organizations in America and wanted to know how many Jewish children she was hiding. That scared my mother. That night, my mother grabbed me, and we ran away from the orphanage and slept in the woods that night. The next morning, we went to Father Andre, who put me into a different orphanage in a different city called Charleroi.
I wonder if we can. I wonder if we can see some pictures of you in the orphanage. We could show that.
Yeah, this is me in the front row at the orphanage in Charleroi. This would be 1943, maybe 1940, early 1944.
And this was a Catholic orphanage, and your mother was hiding you under the guise of being a Catholic, correct?
Right. My father Andre, who was the vicar of Belgium, he had about 2,000 or 3,000 Jewish children. And after the war, they named a boulevard after him in Yad Vashem. He was a very, 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 very nice man.
Tell us a little bit about what you did, how you happened to become a spy for the Allies.
This is another picture of one of the orphanages that I was in. In early 1944, a man that I knew who worked for the National Railroad came to Charleroi and told the Mother Superior that my mother wanted me to come back to where she is. So he took me from Charleroi back to a city called Namur, where my mother was a domestic in the house. And it turns out that house was quarters of the underground. And my mother made a deal with them that if they would bring me to her, that I would work for them in regards to delivering messages and looking at things. Every afternoon I would go on a bicycle to the railroad station and see how many German troops came off and what kind of equipment they had. Also,
so you were a 12-year-old boy, and you were acting as a spy for the underground, spying on Nazi troop movements. Is that correct? German troop movement.
Right. Also in the afternoon time, sometimes I would go in town and roll a colored ball through the headquarters of the Gestapo, because we had agents who worked in there, and every color meant something. I didn't know what the colors were. This is a picture of my mother and I and my father in 1939, 1940, early 1940. What happened was when the Germans came in and started asking for us to do too many things, my father went to Switzerland and bought an apartment for us to move there. And the day that we were supposed to move, my mother got very, very sick and we couldn't do that. 2 weeks later, when she was much better, we went to the Swiss border. The border was closed and we couldn't go into Switzerland. So we had to go back to our apartment. And when my father did, he heard of a bungalow colony in a wooden part of Belgium that we do. And he took us one afternoon, we went out to walk, and the superintendent, who was an agent for the Germans, asked him where we were going. And my father said, well, we're just going for a walk. We walked right to the railroad station and took a train to Genval.
What happened here? Why is this picture cut off? Tell me why that picture's cut off.
Because after the war, my mother needed my father's picture for the Allies to see if they could find him. That's why it's cut off.
So okay,
so
let's see.
We went to Genval, and the second night that we were there was a man crying, "Help! Help!" My father was afraid to go out because he thought maybe it was the Germans or sympathizers of Germans, to find out if there were people living around there. So he went out,
can we? Yeah.
And he saw a man drowning in the lake. He pulled the man out, and it turns out it was a local priest who had too many beers, and he walked into the lake and was drowning. That night we took him in, dried his clothes, and the next morning he said, "What can I do for you? You saved my life." And my father said, "Why don't you inscribe my son in your church book that he was baptized in 1944?" And also they changed my name from Screbnik to Bontemps. Bontemps was a family that he knew very well in that vicinity. So my name became Charles Bontemps.
So
English translation is Good Time Charlie. This particular picture is further down. This picture was in 1945. The house that my mother had rented, there was a railroad siding, which is this, in back of us. And every morning there would be a train pull up in cattle cars with German soldier prisoners. And it was delightful to see that because I knew they were doing the same thing to Jews, taking them to concentration camps. So I enjoyed that very, very much. Also, there was a prisoner of war camp across the street from us. And one day, I was walking by and I saw a man who looked like a general. And I asked the soldier, "Who is he?" He said, "That's Marshal von Rundstedt."
For those of you who don't know who Marshal von Rundstedt, for those of you who don't know who Marshal von Rundstedt is, the Allies were pushing forward, and
the Battle of Bulge. He was a German general.
He was a German general in the Battle of Bulge that almost pushed back the Allied forces, and you saw him as a capture. Yeah. Tell him the rest of the story about the badge.
He had a medal on him, and I said to the soldier, "Gee, can I have that medal?" So he went in and he took it off on Rundstedt's uniform. I gave that medal many years ago to my daughter. She lost it. That's another story.
Okay. Tell us about tell us a little bit about a miraculous thing that happened with an American soldier.
Oh, well, that's further down. That's in March of in August of 1944. The town that we lived in, Namur, was liberated by the army. My mother went to work for the post exchange for the Allies, and then in early November, she switched and went to work for the officers club, and also she decided that we shouldn't live in the city. Let's move to the country. So we moved east of Namur across the Meuse River, and on December the 3rd, the Battle of the Bulge started. We were right in the middle of it. That first day, there was a knock on the door. My mother was afraid to answer. She thought it was a German. She opened the door, and there was an American soldier who said, "Please take me in and hide me in your basement. My outfit left me behind." So he stayed with us until January the 3rd. When the sun came out, the Allies were able to start bombing again. And he thanked us. In fact, when we came to America, he wrote a letter of recommendation for us. But at the time, he was not married. When he went back to America, he got married and had a boy. And the story is that about 6 months ago, our doorbell here in New City, New York rang. And my wife and I answered the door, and there's a man there who said, "If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here." This was the son of the man that we saved. His name is Douglas Spivak. He works for the CIA, and he tracked me down.
What an incredible story. Charles, I know this is difficult on you, bringing back those childhood memories. To make it easier, let's just go through some of the other pictures here. You'll describe them, okay?
This is the June or July 1940, after the Germans had invaded us, and my mother and I in the street, and there's a German officer with us.
Okay, next picture, please, if we can. Tell us what this is.
This is a picture of the people who were on convoy 20 from Malines, Belgium to Auschwitz. And on the third line on the picture, always to the right, is a man with a straw hat. That's my father. He was on that convoy. The convoy was bombed by the underground. My father escaped for a few minutes, but the Germans caught him again. And one convoy later, convoy 21, he was sent to Auschwitz, and never heard from him again.
Let's see another pictures, please. Whatever we have left, Marshal.
This is in Namur, Belgium, after the war. The lady in the middle, Mrs. Adler, saved our lives. What happened is we used to use coal we had coal stoves to heat the house, and I guess gases started escaping. And one morning I got up out of bed and I collapsed. And my mother got up, she collapsed. Then we heard a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Adler, who was coming to borrow a cup of sugar. She saved our life.
Wow. All right, let's see what else we have. Is that it, Marshal? We have something else. Okay.
My mother went to work for the post exchange for the Allies. This was at the PX, and she's serving one of the soldiers. I think it's a corporal, selling it's like a carton of cigarettes. One of the greatest things that I had from the Allies was I was introduced to Coca-Cola, and I thought it was terrific. And the
I gotta tell you,
biggest
I gotta tell you a story about Charles Screbnik. Okay, I've known Charles for years, and if you bring it back here, I have had the pleasure and honor of presiding at his son's bar mitzvah and at his children's weddings and the grandson's bar mitzvahs. And every time over the years, Charles, who was a successful businessman, every time over the years, Charles would ask me, "Can you bring me Hamantaschen?" You know, those cakes we eat on Purim. And I thought he was kidding. I didn't know why he wanted to bring the Hamantaschen. And he said, "No, Rabbi, you got to bring me Hamantaschen."
By the way, Rabbi Spivak owed me 93 pounds of Hamantaschen.
So I figured one Purim I'll bring him a Hamantaschen. So I brought him the Hamantaschen. I've been able to do it every Purim. I figure, what the heck is with Charles Screbnik and his Hamantaschen? And then I found out when Charles was first released after the end of World War II, when he wouldn't have to be hiding anymore, when he wouldn't have to be disguised as a Catholic orphan, when he could go back to his Judaism, the first thing that Charles did, he saw, first Jewish ceremony that he had, was the holiday of Purim. And the first taste of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism he had, was that Hamantaschen that he had. That's a little cake with prunes or whatever they put in some kind of jellies or fruits. And that was his first taste of a Jewish custom after all those years of hiding and not being able to proclaim he was a Jew. And that was as a child. And it was that Hamantaschen that gave him that taste of freedom. The beautiful thing, Charles. So every year, Charles says to me, and Charles calls me every Friday to wish me a good Shabbos, and every year he says to me, "Rabbi, when are you bringing me more Hamantaschen?" And he's serious because it meant a lot to Charles, and I understand that very much. We have any more pictures to go do here? No. Okay, Charles, anything else you want to tell us?
No, I'm just happy that I'm Jewish.
You're happy you're Jewish. You have a wonderful wife, Joanne, and children and grandchildren.
Yes.
And you've done so many good things, and you're always looking to do mitzvahs. I want to thank you for being on the program. And until we meet again, Rabbi Yaakov Spivak saying, Seid gesund, Litrot, Shalom al Yisrael. And most of all, my friend, Chazak.